Welcome to the oldest brick house in Ohio, the Betts house. We get the scoop from Julie, the curator.
William and Phoebe married shortly after the American Revolution. The Betts family emigrated to the United States through New York and ended up settling in New Jersey and then moved west to Pennsylvania. They farmed there for a number of years before deciding that there was better opportunity further west.
The Betts family traveled down the Ohio by flatboat from Pennsylvania, settling in Cincinnati. William Betts made bricks. These are his work, still standing more than 200 years later.
The Bettses had originally been brick makers, and the land that they got here in Cincinnati included some really good brick making clay deposits. And so the first thing they did when they got this 111 acres of land was set up a brickyard, and then they made the bricks. Built their house and then ran that brickyard as a business for about 40 years. They didn't have any electricity. There was no running water. They would have had an outhouse at the back of the property where they would have had to go when they needed to go to the bathroom, or at nighttime chamber pots. They didn't have stoves or microwaves. There was a fireplace in both of the rooms for heat, and then the fireplace in the downstairs room was also their kitchen, and they cooked everything on an open fire. So it was basically like camping, but inside.
Back when it was built, the Betts house stood on more than 100 acres of land. They even had their own orchard, growing peaches in a community known as Texas. But now nearly most of it is covered in concrete. This is all that's left of the Betts backyard.
By 1879, the neighborhood had changed completely. It was actually a neighborhood now. It was no longer a farm. There was a horse-drawn streetcar line that ran down Clark Street. The West End and Over the Rhine had gotten very industrial. There were a lot of breweries in Over the Rhine. The meat packing industry was centered in the West End over by Mill Creek, so there were stockyards and slaughterhouses, and trains were starting to come into Cincinnati in the 1870s, and those were coming in also near the West End. The canal flowed just a block and a half east of the house. So it was definitely a noisy, smelly, crowded place to live by 1879. And that's when the Bettses moved to College Hill and left. They rented the house out for a number of years and then sold it. It stayed a single family home until the 1970s. And in the 1970s, there was a plan to develop this neighborhood. So all of the houses from Ezra Charles Drive down to Court Street were purchased with the intention to demolish them and build this new modern development. They didn't build that, but they let all of these houses sit vacant for about 10 years. You know, the windows were broken out, roofs leaked, chimneys collapsed, lots of damage got done.
The Betts house could have easily been abandoned or even torn down had it not been for one woman's mission to save it.
And in 1988, Martha Tuttle, whose mother was the last Betts child born here in the house, and she was absolutely appalled by what she saw. She organized a group of Betts descendants and some of her friends, and they raised the money to buy the house and restore it. It took them over a year of work to restore the house. So in 1990, people lived in the Betts house again. It was 2 apartments so that the mortgage could be paid off. And then once that was done, then Martha arranged to have the house opened as a museum so that it would be accessible to the public. Because Mr. Betts was a brick maker, because this house is the oldest brick house in Ohio still standing, Mrs. Tuttle and the folks that she talked to came up with the idea of making this house a museum about the built environment. And so we do exhibits that relate to architecture, historic preservation, building trades, construction technologies. The house is not furnished, and it's all, different changing exhibits. We do art exhibits if the art relates to the built environment in some way. We do history exhibits, but everything connects to the built environment. This is the only museum in the region with this focus, and so there's a lot of opportunity to do really interesting programming. We're a hidden jewel, and one of the challenges, but also the opportunities with this job is really revealing that jewel to the community. And as people come to the Betts house, they're always surprised, and they seem to really enjoy their visits here.
The Betts house is now open for visitors. Here's all you need to know.